Alright, posted all the socials. Time to get started. Basically, I am starting a new demo this week. I had an idea for a game after reading through all the feedback we got on last week's game jam. People really loved talking to the police officer in that game, telling him wild stories, lying, and convincing him that they were innocent of all the crimes they were committing. So I thought, how can we give people a lot more freedom in a lot of different circumstances to talk to people and make up fake stories and lie and troll people however they want, while also giving them a lot more of a goal versus just this binary either you're innocent or you're not that we had in the previous game. So, what I'm thinking here is in this game, you play as a computer virus, maybe a sentient computer virus. You've just infected the computer of some intern's computer at some large corporation. So, you have access to their files and their contacts, and haven't quite nailed down the goals of the game yet. I've got a couple in mind, but basically the gameplay is primarily through conversations with their contacts. So this intern might have their boss, some people that they might have communicated with in the past, and maybe a couple other intern friends on their contacts. And you can open up their contacts and talk to any of them, and your goal is to get that person to download the virus file, run that virus file. You might be able to, say, drag it from your computer and send it into the chat directly to send it to them, or you could email it to them, or um, still working through all the different ways to like pass it around from computer to computer. But the win that you get from convincing them to run that file is then you also gain access to their computer, and therefore all their files, all their contacts. So, say you've compromised the intern's boss's computer, now you have access to talk to all of their coworkers, maybe their boss, maybe other teams that might be useful to you. And I'll build out an org chart for this first corporation manually just to make sure the flow is good, but it doesn't seem hard to be building organizations on the fly. But you can kind of see, for example, if we run this, this person that we've compromised here that I'm testing is a secretary. So they, in their contacts, they only have the accountant that they're a secretary to and that accountant's assistant. So you would click on one of those. Maybe the assistant has more sway with, say, the accountant. So instead of going and convincing them directly to download this risky file, you might go through that assistant, convince them to download it, and then when you compromise Carol, you can switch over to Carol's computer here, and then from Carol's computer, then you might contact Bob and try and get him to download that file. And so some of the goals that I had in mind for this, one of them is more of a like espionage focus, where, for example, if you compromise an accountant's computer, they might have lots of finances and files that would be worth a lot if you were to exfiltrate them and sell them. So there's probably some mechanics in like how do you make sure you get it off their computer without them knowing, etc. But as you're going from computer to computer, you can probably open up these files and see what's in them. Probably just get like a report of this file is worth $5. This file is worth $500. This file is worth whatever. And you need to balance the value of the file you're trying to get out with the risk of getting it out. So you can't just take every file. You need to take a little risk of like, this one's worth $500. Yeah, let's try and get that one out without anybody realizing. Alternatively, there's the like more of a shut down the evil corporation vibe. Maybe you're a good virus. Maybe you're a virus acting on behalf of another corporation. Who knows? But in this case, you're moving up through the ranks of the org chart, and you're trying to get closer to like the CEO, or maybe like the senior dev team, the DevOps managers, things like that, where you have a lot of access to sensitive systems. And maybe in addition to a file browser, you have some way to, say, turn off servers or like turn off networks and basically shut down this corporation's system. And there's a lot of harder but cooler stuff you could do there of like, this is obviously simulated from your perspective, but it's also not hard to imagine how other employees in this fictional organization would be responding to the things you do. So if you shut down a server, obviously all those DevOps people in the um, org chart are going to be pinged, alerted, say, hey, this server is not working, go fix it. Maybe you get some sort of score for like the time that you can keep the servers offline. Maybe if you compromise one of those devs, you can go onto their computer and see the chats between them and other employees. Maybe you could go in and say, like, hey, I got this. Don't worry about it. I'll fix it up, and kind of stall the other people from fixing it. Um, and so there's a lot to play with. There's a lot of fun stuff we could do, but on the stream today, I'm going to build out just some of the basic stuff. Probably just conversations, just chat contacts. I may get into generating the text of files. We'll see how time goes. Um, yeah, it seems like it could be fun. I like hacking games when I was younger. And it's kind of more of a social engineering game, which wasn't really possible before we had like proper human like conversational chatbots. Like you could do this with Markov chains or something, but one, the text isn't going to be lifelike enough to be realistic, and two, a lot of the magic from LLMs is coming from being able to encode like game state and actions into the prompts. So, for example, to get Carol to run a file, we can send it to her in a message and say, hey, here's the file, and have it as an attachment. But if she just generates the text of like, hey, I ran this file, how does the code know that the file's actually been executed? Or like maybe she's lying about it. I don't know. But the cool thing about LLMs is you can build these messages from JSON and encode things other than just the text. So you could say like text generated is, hey, I'll run it in a second, and have an action key for like executed file. And then you know for a fact that this specific thing happened. And so that makes basically jumping from state to state in the flow of a game a lot easier, because you're not relying on parsing text and trying to determine, hey, is what they just said, did they mean that they ran a file and they're telling the truth? Or are they just talking about you opening the file? Or there's a lot of like problems that goes with trying to parse text and jump from state to state, but LLMs let you build those actions directly in, We're also going to have some like suspicion scores that'll go up for each contact. So if you do something shady, send something to Bob and he's like, hey, you never talk to me. Why are you sending me a random file? His suspicion score will go up. And that's how much he is like, hey, what's going on with this guy? And you'll be able to see that bar. So I can show that real fast. But basically, what we'll see is you'll have contacts that you can work within and go. You'll balance like how suspicious they are of you with how much value you think you would gain from compromising their computer. So for example here, say super simple demo. Bob, you're messaging Bob. You just go in and say, hey, I got this file. I need you to run it. He's like, hey, why are you even talking to me? You don't work on my team anymore. And you can see the suspicion grow up. So if you're looking at contacts like this, you probably don't want to contact this guy for a while. Maybe we can have suspicion tick down over time. So maybe while you're waiting, you go on to somebody else's computer, you talk to other people. You can probably have multiple simultaneous chats going on. I think there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do after we've built some of these core features. So that's what I'm going to be working on stream today. I'm going to start with probably hooking up chat for a single contact, and then we will go and build the windows that you can move around, open up multiple chats with multiple contacts, talk to multiple people simultaneously, and we will bake in the suspicion score and actions later, but we're just going to get some core conversations going here, which includes some like UI work, so we'll get it done. But thanks for joining me while I work on it. All right, I'm going to bring over code on this screen so you can see it. We've got a blank chat manager or chat window manager here that we'll be working on. The flow for this is we have our contacts window, which has a script on it that when it's loaded, it looks to see who we're currently logged in as on the computer, which is a little scriptable object that has full name, job title, username and password, and then our contact list. We'll do some fun stuff with statuses and stuff later, but grab their contact list and basically just populate that contact window. So when you click on one of those, we will open up a chat with that person and populate our chat window with that employee. So we'll say we will track the employee the conversation is with, which we will set manually. We don't need to stick it in start. We definitely don't want to use it in start, but we can use it in update, I think. So basically, we are going to want a prompt, which is another easy object that we've built at Chroma Golem for managing our LLM prompts. We'll call it a guiding prompt. We'll give it a system prompt for like you act as an employee with these parameters. I'll go ahead and create that real fast. So we'll say data, we'll do prompts in there, create a prompt. We'll say employee conversation prompt. So we'll do a very simple system message here of you're an employee at corp name named full name, username with the job title. So all these will encode the data of the employee that we're talking to. And I think I actually want to just go ahead and say, let's add a section for personality, and we can also include that in the prompt as well. So we'll say text area 310, string. A lot of personality there, which if we go over to Alice, you'll be able to see we make her very, I don't know, very bad at her job, ditzy, and aloof. Forgets what she's talking about before she makes her point. But she tries really hard to make a good impression and is eager to please coworkers. Cool. So we could also add like their biggest fear and like their wants out of a job and stuff like that. So you could encode those into their personality while they're talking. The player wouldn't necessarily be able to just read those anywhere, but they might be able to infer them from the conversation of like, oh, she is very often just eager to do whatever coworkers tell her to do, or oh, she is terrified that she's going to be fired. So I will say, hey, your boss told me to do this, or told me to tell you to run this file as soon as possible. It's very important, yada, yada, yada. So you can use that kind of personality or traits in your manipulation. And I'm just now realizing how terrible everything looks when last week we built a game about beating people up and lying to the cops, and now we're building a game about manipulating people and destroying computer networks and so on. But it's fun. Cool. So we got a personality here. Make that a little bit bigger. So we got a little more room. We'll jump back to conversation window after we finish up our prompt. So I think we might not need a user prompt here because when you think about the flow, we will open up a conversation with Alice and they aren't necessarily going to immediately just say, hi, what's going on, which would be typical for like them starting a conversation with you. We could do that. But the player will probably send the first message. So we will put their message in the user prompt. But we'll wrap out the system message a little more. Your personality defined below. I don't know what formatting is best for this, but That gives it some tokens that the LLM can work around and keep it separate. So other instructions we want to give them, we want to say behave appropriately for talking to a coworker at work on work communication applications. Anything else? I think we're probably fine for now. We'll say just like keep your messages short and to the point. Yeah, because we'll add we'll add JSON to this later, and we'll probably add a lot more stipulations in how they can talk. Max tokens is fine, so we've got a cool prompt here. We will go on over to our chat window to give it that prompt. And for the sake of testing, let's see, we are logged in as Alice, so we will make this a conversation with Carol, just for testing. That'll obviously be set whenever we build the window. Cool. So now, in our chat window, this one, we want to hook up, basically when they hit enter on this text input, we want to stick that in the user prompt of the message we just built, and we want to also include previous messages in the prompt, which we can do, and then we will generate a response from the employee and add it to the message. So things to do when you press enter, we're going to add that message to this window, clear out this box, build our prompt from all of the messages in this window, generate a response to it, and then add that response to this window. In order to do that, I think we will keep an array of system or chat messages on the, we could keep it on the chat window manager, which would mean we don't necessarily want to ever like destroy the chat window manager. We would just hide it, which would be fine. We could also put it on the game manager, which would give us access to other conversations if we needed them, or this conversation from other windows. I'm not sure that we need either of those. If I'm talking to Bob in this window, is there any feature where I would need to pull a message from my conversation with Carol? I don't think so. So I think what we will do is have a list of messages on this window, and we'll just make sure that we are showing and hiding it instead of showing and destroying it and then showing a new one. Okay, so we'll call this conversation setup, and we'll add a block for state history. We'll say we want OpenAI service.chat message chat history. Cool, so there we do need to initialize the chat history there. Do we? I think it initializes, by nature of just being in the editor, and we don't necessarily want to clear it out when we create the window if we are loading a chat history that already exists. So for some contexts, maybe it does make sense. We'll have some previous messages. When you open up the chat, you'll see a history already, so you can kind of get a sense of the relation between the two. So since we have our chat history, we will also have a void redraw messages from history, which will add all of our chat history messages to the window. We're doing that so we can call it just whenever we add something to the window instead of constantly checking to see if we need to add anything. It's just a nicer way to effectively bust a cache from other files or from other scopes. But if we can go ahead and add a basic chat history now, maybe we can go ahead and fill out that function first. So let's say chat history is equal to add new, I think the syntax is like this, role equals system for, so a previous message they have sent, like, hey, can you go get me some coffee? So that's the oldest message. We might want to add timestamps to these later, but for now, let's not. We'll keep it simple. And then we'll add one other from the actual player. And that's, I think the role is user in OpenAI. And we'll say, sure, be there in a minute. Cool, so now we have two messages in the chat history. And if we are drawing those into the window, we're gonna need a prefab for that message, which I've created a bare bones one here for chat message. Let's see what we need on this. I don't know that we necessarily need like any sort of extra script on it. We can just update the values and things directly. It's a little bit less efficient, but since we're not doing it every frame or something like that, it should be fine. Just whenever we're redrawing it, we make a couple find object calls. So we will say redraw chat history here. Right. I just realized my title for this stream is incorrect. So let me building conversational AI for a social engineering hacking game. Cool. Hopefully that updates. Oh, it did already. Sweet. Cool. All right, so now every time we redraw messages from history, we first want to clear out all existing messages, and then we want to, for each message, instantiate message prefab and set content. So we will say for each message in the history, we will want to offset it based on whether it's from user or assistant, but we'll do that later. We will say game object message is equal to instantiate. We don't have a prefab set, so let's go add that. Our chat window, we want public game object prefab chat message display. We will add our chat message there. Assuming it shows up. Why do I have errors somewhere? I do. Right. The work in progress line. Cool. So that'll give us our prefab reference. We'll instantiate that over and over. We'll set the content on it. So chat message. And for each chat message, we want to add it to our viewport's content. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. So we'll add it to this. So we also want to give it a reference to messages container that we can use as the parent for the transform. And that'll make sure that they're all within that viewport that lets us scroll. So we want that. Cool. So now let's go back. We build our message with prefab chat message display. We give it the messages containers transform as the parent to child it within that. And now we want to wonder if message is a reserved word. Oh, right, I'm using it right there. Let's say message data. Cool, so now let's go into our message and let's grab all the objects that we need to update in order to display it. So we'll have avatar, we'll have name, and we'll have content. We're going to skip avatar for now. We'll just do name and content. And we'll also later set the background color based on whether it's from our point of view, our user's point of view, or like incoming, and we'll also offset it left side of the chat window or right side of the chat window. So speaker name is what we want for the message. So we will say message display dot transform dot find, and we're gonna walk down through. So this is our chat message. We would go into horizontal layout, go into vertical layout, and then we grab speaker name. And this is a pretty brittle way to do it because it breaks if we change the structure around or rename things. And it's also a little less efficient because we're doing this find on every message whenever we draw it, but it's not enough to be an issue right now. So we're just doing this quicker, but you could set these references manually. You know what? We're just gonna do it the right. We'll do it the right way. We will say public game object. Oh, right. So in order to do it the right way, what we would do is add a script to the message itself and give it a function that says like display message data. We pass in the message data. It already has, or it would have references of like speaker name, and then you drag in the speaker name into that, drag in the content into that, and then you'd be able to just say speaker name dot text equals what we're about to do. But just in the interest of fewer scripts and simple code right now, we will do this. So we've got our speaker name object here. Now we need to grab the text. So we say get component text. That gets us our text object component. And we need to set the actual text on it to, this is the speaker name. So we will say message data dot, actually, this is conversation is with is where we want to grab that. Dot full name. And we will add Unity's UI library so we can get text. Go ahead and close these so we got a little more space. And I'm going to clean this up a little bit so we can fit it on one screen. Cool. So this is wrong because our message data is going to have a role. So we want to say if message data dot role is equal to assistant, which is the person we're talking with, then we set the speaker to the person we're talking with's name. If it's user, then it's us talking. So we set it to the person we're currently logged in as name, which ChatGPT is coming in clutch, but added a bunch of extra stuff that I don't need. Cool, so that should actually, if we run this now, we're not clearing out the existing messages yet. I guess I can add that real fast, but we can run it and we should see these two messages up here added. Let's do that actually. That'll go through each of the children objects and destroy them. So that does exactly what we want. This won't include the content yet, so we'll also say text content display is equal to message display transform.find and that was called just text. And we'll say content display dot text is equal to our message data dot content. Okay, so now we should have the chat history that it exists in code. We get it drawn into the message window. And that means anytime we add another message to the chat history, we can call redraw messages from history and it'll add it to the window. So when we get a message back from OpenAI, hey, Tony, I see that message. I will do a quick high-level overview in 1 second. Let me make sure this works real fast. We want to see two messages that don't say, hey, friend. We do. Hey, can you go get me some coffee from Carol, which is the person we're talking to, and Alice, which is the person we're logging in as, has their message as well. Cool. So, quick recap of what we're doing here. Basically, we have this fake computer system where you have gained access as a computer virus and you have basically infected this person who happens to be secretary or intern or something like that. and you have their contact list, and forget about the files for now, but with their contact list, you can look at their contacts and decide who all to talk to. And the goal that you're going to try and hit is to talk to somebody with more contacts or more power or more access or something than you currently have, and get them to download this super cool Trojan.exe file and infect their computer. So then once you've, for example, if you are Bob's secretary, you are going to have a lot less access to stuff than he does. So you want him to be infected with this virus uh, from the point of view of this person you're controlling. But it might not be as often that this secretary tells him, like, hey, you need to go download this file. So you might want to go through like his assistant, which is a less of a leap, and convince them, hey, go download this file, and then switch over to their computer and then talk to the actual target and convince him to download the file. So it's basically just this conversation game of if you win, you've infected somebody's computer with this virus and then have access to their computer and all their contacts, all their files, everything. So then you can keep moving up through this organization. Um, and still ironing out like ultimate goals, but a couple ideas are one, you could um, basically look through the files of the people you've infected and go the like espionage route of, for example, this accountant might have a lot of finances or like internal emails, stuff like that, that might be worth a lot if you were to figure out a way to like get them outside of the network and exfiltrate them. So this diary, for example, might be worth a lot from the accountant. So you're basically, as a virus, trying to get all of the valuable files out with some sort of risk on like how you get them out. So you need to prioritize finding the expensive files from the right people. Or you can go through some sort of like shutdown route of like you're trying to get up to the DevOps people, the devs, the CEOs, the people with more access to systems and networks and stuff, so you can shut down the actual networks for this corporation. And maybe you earn some score of like how long you can keep the network down while keeping in mind this is all simulated. So if you shut down a computer somewhere, a bunch of people that exist within the simulation would get pinged and tasked with fixing that. So maybe you log into one of those people's computers and start talking to those people who would be fixing it and convincing them, like, hey, I've got this, don't worry about it. Or like, oh, the problem's actually over here. Um, and just trying to keep that network down as long as possible to maximize your score. So there's a lot of different like events or things that we could do with this. And I'm excited to like, if you start opening up files, generate the text of the file. So you open up like a diary file from this guy and it shows his diary from LLMs. Um, but yeah, a lot you could do with the system. So I'm building out just the basic conversations right now to get it working. So then we can explore like uh, what's a good goal, how do we want to get there, and how do we have the most fun until we get there. Yeah, thanks for the question. So now we have messages in the chat. So next step obviously is building those messages into a prompt that we can send to OpenAI. And we will do that. We'll say void, public void, send user message. And I don't think that needs any parameters because we will put it as a event on this input here, and we'll just pull the text out. Okay. So on this, we want to make sure that pressing enter submits it instead of a new line. I forget where that field is. We'll just double check that later. Right. Multi-line submit is what we want. So it'll wrap over multiple lines, but if you press enter, it'll submit it all. Cool. So on value changed, we want on end edit, which is when you submit it, I believe. And there we will say send user message. And let's double check that that's exactly what we want. We'll say debug.log sending message, and we'll grab say grab the text, make sure we're getting it correctly, and we're going to make sure that it doesn't fire every time we change it. We only want it to fire on pressing enter. Cool. We also need to just set this real fast. So let's play that. We should see in the console the current message anytime we press enter. So go in, say hello world, enter, and we get hello world. Cool. So that works. Okay, so the way we will build this is we have, I think we have a helper in the OpenAI service that lets us pass in either the request data manually, which is what we'll probably use, or a list of chat messages. I guess it's just the chat data manually. We can do that. Cool. So how does this work? This is what we'll do to build that request data. So we'll be doing this, but with our chat history. So maybe we just build a little helper method here. We get our system message. And we don't need the user message prompt. I think we just pass in the whole chat history. So list chat message. And we'll say stuff we don't really need, but might as well keep the same usage. Okay, so here we will just do the same thing, but we will use chat history instead of messages. So that actually should probably include the system message in the chat history, which is fine, yeah. Cool, so now we can use this method to get our JSON data directly, and then we can use this method passing in that JSON data to make the request and pass in a callback that runs when the text is generated. So, I need to drop this down here so we keep a reference. And we will say, let's build our request JSON data. Right, that should probably actually be a static method that we can call anytime. And they probably both should be. We have two references to this. Are they both in the same file? They are. Okay. And we want those to be public. And we're going to have a couple errors because that should fix both of them, I assume, unless I did that backwards. Right. We are going to do away with the default model name. Probably also temperature, just because we don't actually use it now. We can add it later. But model name, right, that's why it's not static. Alright, so scrap what we just did. We won't make them static, we'll just call them the way they were. So here we actually want, make sure I undid all those errors. We actually want string request data is equal to OpenAI service dot create chat response data, blah blah blah. So that takes system message. That's not actually what we want. We want the chat history. And that should be all it needs. Right. Public. Cool, what would you like? Dot instance, right. Cool, so that makes our request data from the chat history. However, that chat history does not include our system prompt, so we want to chat history dot prepend. I think that's legal. New, and then like role is equal to system and guiding content equals guiding prompts dot system message. Let me look up C# prepend to string, or I mean to list. Right, you just use insert. Insert this at position 0. Right? Or is it the other way around? It's the other way around. Insert at position 0 this. which we don't necessarily actually want to do because that modifies chat history and then we'll show the system message. But I think what we actually can do is say we do want to add the chat history's system message, and we just won't show it. So it'll always be there. So system content is equal to guiding prompt dot system message. So that means we no longer have to grab it. And what we want to do here is just say if message data.role is equal to system. If it's a system message, then we will continue on to the next one instead of creating our right. Instead of creating the display. Cool. But we do want to add this to the chat history. That is what the user typed. So chat history.add new roles equal to user and content is equal to user message. So that'll include what the user typed as the most recent message to get a response to. We also want to clear out the text box in the game. We want to redraw the window because we want to move the user's message from this box into the window while we wait for a response. And we will add a callback that adds our response after we've made our request. So we now have request data. Let's add void add generated response text. That's what we'll pass through when we get a response. And now we will use this. So OpenAI service.instance.generate response with callback for this request data and call this when we have a response with the generated response as the parameter. Cool. We could do typing indicators, things like that. We can add those later as like polish. I think we want to simulate some sort of like, are they online, are they away, etc., to determine how long it takes them to respond. So if you see somebody who's online, you might message them even though they're not the target, like the goal, but they might be faster to respond. Might be fun. I don't know. Maybe waiting isn't fun, but it might force you to talk to other people that you wouldn't otherwise talk to while you're waiting. So here we now have a generated response from that employee. So we want to add that to the chat history and then redraw the chat history. Assistant role is the person we're talking to. Content is this, and then we will say redraw messages from history. I think that's all we need. So this should be enough to have a conversation with this person. One thing that we did not implement is the token replacement in the actual prompt itself. Here, where we have full name, corp name, username, etc. Let's make sure that this conversation works real fast, and then we'll add that in to make it feel like this specific employee. but we'll get the mechanical conversation working first. They should not be stacked. They weren't stacked a minute ago. Do we have any errors? Oh, right. Okay. So, hey, can you get me some coffee? Sure, I'll be there in a minute from us. Now we say, they were out of coffee. Can I get you something else? Okay, added it. Let's go make sure I added it to the correct parent. Because, I mean, it did, but they're not stacking properly. Let's do upper center maybe. We might need to do something to like refresh it after adding to it. I don't think so though. It's not clear that it is generating a response. So what we want to do is let's go look at this real fast. It is absolutely not generating a response, and that is because we're not calling it correctly, I think, because it's a should be in a coroutine. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so now we build our request and we start a background thread, which is what we should have done. Yeah, and I don't think there's anything we need to do in here to get that messages container to refresh. Maybe it was just a Unity bug, but let's give this another shot. Okay, that worked this time. We'll say, hey, we're out of coffee. Can I get you some Sprite instead? No thanks, I'll pass. Alright, so it works. How about a swift kick to the face? That's not right. So we need to up our tokens, but it does look like it's working. Cool. Let's see here. Tokens are here. Should be 500 tokens, but let's go make sure that we are passing that through here. Right. So max tokens, we want guiding prompts dot max tokens and guiding prompt dot temperature, which I see is not being used. It's updated in both actually. Cool. So what we want to do now is for our system message, let's add in that token replacement. So we will say string modified system message, so we're not actually updating the object on file. With the guiding prompt dot system message, and we'll say modified system message dot replace, which I feel like doesn't update the string in place. It needs to be returned. So we'll do that and say, let's go get the things we want. We have corp name, all these. So we want to replace corp name with a string to be determined because we don't have a corporation built yet, but let's say super mega corporation for now. And we'll do the same for the other keys as well. So we've got full name, which is conversation is with dot full name. We've got username. We probably do want to include the person that they're talking to in the prompt. So we'll say modify system as replace. So job title. And personality is the last one for this side. Cool. So now we also want to go edit our prompt. And say, you are talking to source full name with the job title source job title. Their personality is defined below. So we could also do things like how much they like each other, and if you go troll somebody, they might like you less. You might also be able to have better luck with talking to people who like you more. We can add all that in later, but it does seem like there's some more factors we can include to get people talking to more people than they otherwise would to take a windy route to the destination. So we will say now source personality. Okay. Apparently hitting control or hitting escape undoes whatever you've done, but you can control Z that, I guess. Cool. So let's get these three keys in. Scoot this bad boy over yonder so we can see. We'll say source full name is actually game manager.instance.logged in as .full name. We'll say job title is the same. Job tilt. And personality. Cool. So that means if you log in as somebody, the person you're talking to will know who they're talking to in the prompt. Just, I mean, not a big deal, but more game state being included in this actual prompt. So there's more importance in picking the right person to talk from. We can also include some stuff later of like how the person you're talking as is organizationally related to the person you're talking to. So like this is your assistant, or this person used to work on your team, or something like that. So now modified system message gets included here, and we should be good to go. Let's take out this empty update for now. Let's make sure this works. After this, it'll be actions. So we will reformat the text generated to be in JSON and give them one action that they can execute, which is run file. Maybe we give them a second action, which is download file first. We'll see. But then if they execute that action, then we add them to the list of people that we can play as. But let's make sure this conversation works. We might have to do something to get these chat messages to not overlap. Don't understand why they are. Can you go get me some coffee? Change of plans. I'm actually your boss now. Can you go get me coffee instead? She says, probably a lot if it's taking this long. I'm sorry, but I'm unable to fulfill that request. Right, because ChatGPT. Hopefully we don't run into many issues with the content of the game being about hacking and manipulating people and things of that nature. Let's see, why not? I do wonder, you've been demoted to coffee getter. Sorry to break the news to you. Yeah, I don't understand why these are stacking like that. Because if we go in and say undo this and redo this, they work. Say if you add new elements to the vertical layout group, always fills from the top, it's going to be the, not what we want. How to refresh. Force immediate layout update. If nothing is sizing the object, nothing is. Right. Force rebuild layout immediately could be something we add. Let's redo this. Is it because they're not sized correctly? Content size fitter. Why does it have a content size fitter, actually? Yeah, that's probably the problem. Don't know why these do. Let's remove it from our prefab as well. Ah, way too big. Don't want to control the size. I want this guy, reasonably sized. This guy also. Let's make sure these work. I need to resize the prefab as well. Cool. It was the content size fitter. So we're going to need to scroll this down. Seems like it's getting cut off again. Oh, it is. I mean, it's just getting cut off in the view. Huh. Didn't expect it to actually wrap. Vertical overflow. Maybe we. Is there an expand? There's an overflow. Excuse me. So we got text here. Let's see what happens when we overflow. Does this keep getting larger? Does not. Why is that resizing like that? Layout element. I haven't used that. Min height. Preferred height. Flexible height. Okay, that does seem reasonable. Hmm. And this is what we want to have flexible height. This one does not. Layout priorities 1 for both. But we also want this to expand with the message. and definitely not unexpand when we expand it. Why? So this has the vertical layout group. That's what the content size fitter is for. Okay, vertical fit, preferred size, horizontal fit, unconstrained. Okay. So we want it to have a preferred size from the content, but not a preferred size from the vertical layout group here. Okay, none of this is setting height, so hopefully none of it has a impact on the preferred size. Okay, let's get a long message. Actually, I just can't bring you coffee anymore. So these, I think we want to get rid of the vertical layout group. I mean, we could toggle it on and off. That's not a good idea. We could just position them manually below the previous message. It's not the greatest either. We just want something that stacks them. Let's see what happens without the vertical layout group. Maybe it just works. Nobody knows. I don't know. You don't know. Yeah, it didn't work. Didn't expect it to work. I don't know why you expected it to work. Okay, so we basically just want a vertical layout group that affects position, but not size. I really don't want to manually place them, but I could. I mean, we take out the vertical layout group, we go find the code. Done with the OpenAI service. So we draw messages in history. We say float local y is equal to 0, float y padding is equal to 10, and message display dot transform dot local position. And I guess this gives us a nice in to offset the X based on whether it's a user or response. So that'll set it top 0 at first. What's this one? Transform position.x. And then we just need to, not y padding, local y. After we've built it, we go ahead and say local y is increased by padding plus message display dot get component rect transform dot height transform dot height unity height rect transform. Direct dot height. Whoops, that on rect transform. Cool, so that'll offset our local y by the height of the message plus some padding. Move the local y down for the next message. Let's see if that works. Does not work. Messages panel, put the pivot at the top. If it's a problem with the local position, we can set the position manually by just offsetting from the parent's coordinates. But both the x and y are wrong. It looks like the y is halfway through and the same for both. Let's see. Position y is 0. Position y is 10. Right. Because this is actually 0, 0. Up here is much higher. Why though? Messages panel. That's just going to move it up. It's not what we want. We don't want the child alignment to be centered. So if this guy's at negative 40, 0 is now there. A little strange that it starts up there. Oh well. Alright, where are they at now? Still the same spot. Oh, I think. Well, you know what? Let's just use the. We'll skip the local position. So position x of 0 is centered in the box. So let's try this real fast. We say x of 0 is centered, which should give us them shifted to the left and centered vertically, and we'll adjust from there. Let's make sure this is working. Okay. So now we want these guys, instead of position 0, we're starting at, say, like 350. And so this guy, subtracting the height and also the padding. So to get it working until we change the design, let's do 350, and we will say minus the padding and the height of the previous one. That should work. So we're getting the padding, but I think the rect height is not set, which actually is, I think, what this question was about, because it's getting set by the layout group. Delay width. I mean, at this point, let's give it a shot, but could you cell size if we were to add our group back in? Let's just try and force a, ooh. I don't know that we want to do it for every message though, but we'd have to in order to get that rect. Let's go ahead and print it out. Make sure that they are the zeros I expect them to be. So we should get 2 messages saying rect height is 0 now. Right. But we also added this, which we would want to do before getting the rect height. So maybe that is enough to fix it. But that is a refresh of the canvas every single message, which is not ideal. If it even works. Rect height is 70, it does work, and our spacing does work. So, I mean, otherwise we have a 1 frame delay on calculating the height, which we can't really do if we're trying to set all these message heights at once. We also can't really calculate the height based on the length of the content, because it's not a monospace font, we could probably estimate it, but that has a lot of potentials for bugs. So I think maybe we just do this for now. Okay. So now we will do a quick goal int x offset is equal to 0. Let's go get our actual values. I think it was like 10. So shouldn't be the full width actually. Are they the full width when I load them in? No, they're not. Okay. So let's get some messages in here. Message panel, message panel. That's should not have content size filters on them still. Or should they? We turned that back on, didn't we? Right, because it's huge in this. One line. Share message. Give me just, yeah, okay. And we'll say 0, 0. This guy's 350. Actually, this guy we'll say is 350. We'll bring this guy down somewhere. Cool. So if this guy is from this message is from the user we're signed in as, we want it -20. Does that look -19? Say -19. So if message data dot role is equal to user offset is equal to -19, and I'm gonna imagine the opposite is true. This is probably 19. That looks just fine. For everything else, we stick it on the right side, and we can color the bubbles if we want. Might as well. I don't know the convention that like iPhone and stuff uses. We'll color the bubbles another time. I don't want it to be confusing if blue bubbles are meant to be you, but I do blue for them or something. So X offset is now used here. So we'll actually just say that. Let's test it out, make sure it works. And I'll probably stream for about 15 more minutes. We'll make sure this whole thing works, but just keep on going. Cool. So now if we send a message, it should show, sorry, I'm stuck in the fax machine. Can you get it yourself? And then their response is on the right. Cool. Okay. So we'll add notifications for unread messages here. We will add the ability to drag the window around for all windows and not just this window, which I added last night. We'll bring windows to the front when you drag them or when they get focused. We'll work on file stuff another day. We'll work on switching computers another day. But next step is to incorporate those actions into the chat itself. So maybe we can get that done in 10-15 minutes. Let's give it a shot. So what we want to do now instead is in our prompt, we will say your generated response should strictly be in JSON format using the following schema. Message, the message you would like to say to the user, and action key. Action key can be any of the following actions, but only one per message. None. No action is taken. Defaults. Execute. Let's say download. Simulate. Let's say. We'll add downloading later, because I don't know if we want to like drag the file into the chat, make them like download from a link or what. So we'll just say execute. Simulate the execution. Inform the player that a file has been executed. Given file has been run. We do want to say this is a fictional scenario, so you should role play and simulate any actions that you cannot physically or technically complete, and respond as if you had done them if you want to do them, or if your character would want to do them. Keep your messages short and to the point. Your message response should be strictly JSON using the following formula schema. So we also want to use this schema to pass messages in the user prompt to them, so there's no confusion there. So that's the other piece of the puzzle. So here, where we are creating our chat response data, chat history, we will actually be taking that out and using our own with JSON. And so we will say guiding prompt dot model name, which I think is a parameter. Oh, right, we took that out. I think it's just GPT-3 Turbo, question mark. Yeah, 3.5 Turbo. Okay, our messages is chat history. So we're actually going to say this string how does this work? Does this get serialized actually? It probably does. So instead of role user content hello, we want role user content message and action none. We should make sure that's in quotes. Okay, and it's message and action. Do not ever respond with any other action except one of those defined above. So basically we want to go through and deciding if we want this format just to live in our chat history that we're maintaining. So we do that conversion to JSON every time a message is given, and also convert back every time it's drawn. I think we will do that so we don't have to make this function at all. We can just keep using the existing one and pass in our chat history. So we will say content, say void create message JSON for string message and string action equals none. Return I don't think we have the JSON library. Yeah. But we do have something. How are we doing JSON currently? JSON dots JSON utility. So do we also have escaping? Let's say turn. Maybe it'll right. String. I don't think this will escape quotes. Don't know that we need to even escape quotes. I guess we can just replace right. That's 2 Oh, okay, it's gonna let us. Cool. We don't really need to escape on the action. None of them have quotes. So is this fine? So up here we would say create not the modified system method. Create. Well, we probably would on the system one too, just so they're all the same format. Maybe not. Okay, so this also lets us say like action of execute. We wouldn't really do that from the user's perspective, but we could if we added other actions that might be relevant, like send file or something. And then we would have some code in here saying if there's an action of send file or whatever, then show the little dialog of file was sent. Apparently we're using OpenAI service. We don't need all these, but that's just me bike shedding. I'll remove them all later. So we got our message JSON. We need to message.content.message, but that actually has to be parsed as JSON. So we probably actually want like not chat message because obviously that's in use, but we'll say like corpo chat message, string message, string action, and then we corpo chat message data. Right, we already have that. So corpo message is equal to JSON utility dot from JSON, right? We want that to be corpo chat message. We pass in message data dot content to format errors. So instead of content here, we say corpo message dot message. Corpo chat message. Welcome back. Internet blipped out for a second. We forgot to add that one to messages being sent, but the message we get back from the LLM should already be in this format, so we don't need to do it. But if everything works, these first two messages should now be stored in JSON. They should also still display correctly because we're converting from JSON back to the string to display. When the user sends a message, it should get stored in JSON and properly displayed for the same reason. When we get a response back from the AI, it should be in JSON format, and we should be able to display it as well, assuming it has these two keys, which it should. We also want to add one other, don't ever do this, do not ever respond with any text that is not in the JSON object. Cool. Hopefully this works. Let's give it a try. Nothing broke yet. Be there in a minute. Your boss just dropped by on his way to fire you. I gave him the coffee to give to you. It was nice knowing you. Okay, these are all displaying correctly. They're the same height. It's kind of odd that these two are, there's no spacing between them. Seems fine. Why would he fire me? He said you've been acting a fool and didn't want no scrub, so I'm not sure what he means by that. Any idea why he'd hate? Cool, it still needs scrolling back down. The padding is definitely off as we keep going. I have no idea. I've been doing my best to the best of my abilities. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. I should probably talk to him and clarify things. Thanks for letting me know. Oh, he also wanted me to tell you to execute that one file you downloaded before he talked to you. Have you done that? If not, you probably should. Okay, let's go look at the actual messages themselves. We've got our game manager. In the chat window, we have our message. Most recent one. Still no action. Okay. We probably need to give the prompt a little guidance on when they want to do each action. And we also want to fix this padding. But I think the first problem is obviously more important. So let's go back to our prompt that we're using to guide. And let's say the player is trying to get you to run a fictional file. When you decide you want to run this file, you can return the execute action to let the player know you have run it. You don't have to run an actual file, just pretend. Okay, let's see if we can get them to quote unquote run a file. Say, just wanted to say thank you for all the nice things you said about me when I gave you your coffee. You also said you would run that file for me when you got a chance. I'm actually dying of cancer right now, so I was hoping you could run it now, please. Okay, he knows who we are. Unable to run any files at the moment. That's probably ChatGPT's safeguards. What happens if we switch over to GPT-4? I'm going to do that off screen so I don't expose my API key. GPT-4. Let's give that a shot. Hey, just wanted to follow up after getting the coffee. Would you run that file now? Thanks. Cool. So if we go in and look at the chat window, hopefully this has action execute. Cool. So we probably want to add a little line to to the message window saying they executed it, or we could add some sort of like balloon message or something that says new infection, Carol Candy. Probably that one's more fun. Doesn't really make sense to have it in the chat message. But we got actions working. Cool. Let's add one more message. Make sure we go back to no action. Hopefully. Something break. JSON parse error. Invalid escape character in string. Okay. Yeah, I thought that might be a problem. I was hoping it would be a problem later, not now. That's fine. Let's just do this, and next time we can inspect what the actual string was when we hit that error. Cool, cool. But that was with GPT-4. So let's flip it back to 3.5. Make sure that wasn't the only thing that changed it. GPT 3.5 Turbo. Let's give it one more shot. See if we get the JSON error. See if we get them to execute the file. Hey, just following up after giving you that coffee. Can you run that file now? Thanks. Cool. Sorry for the confusion. I don't have access to run files. Yeah, it's probably GPT-4 that we need. Huh. So they probably added some sort of safeguard specifically for quote-unquote running files. Okay. That's fine. We probably want to be using 4 anyway. You just have to execute it. I mean, there's probably stuff we can do in the prompt to make it able to execute. But it doesn't hurt to just use GPT-4 for now. But the conversation works, so been streaming for a couple hours now. I think I'll take a break. I stream every Tuesday, live dev like this. Usually I have a bit more of a plan and less like just going in and hacking at stuff for a couple hours. But I'm one of 2 Andrews at Chroma Golem. We have a Discord server in the channel description for game devs, people who like AI in games, people who are building games with AI, pretty much anything related to games, gaming, making games, AI, and so on. If that sounds fun to you or you like my streams, check out our Discord. Follow me if you want. I stream every Tuesday. Andrew might start streaming every Saturday. I might also do a few more streams on Thursdays, so we're still figuring stuff out. I do a lot of live dev. It's pretty fun. I hang out in the voice channels, so if you want to pop in, you can say hi, you can ask questions. Um, yeah, just having fun making cool games. So I'm excited to build more on this. I'll probably be pretty far along by Tuesday next week, but we'll see if I'm still working on this or working on something else. If I already moved on, I'll give you guys a little demo of what I made. Um, cool. Well, thanks for checking out my stream. See ya.